So my thesis has become a baggy monster, threatening to eat me alive. Thankfully though, there's help at hand. So here I am in my old town of Brighton. It's lovely to be back, but I won't have much time for socialising because I'm here to knock my thesis into shape. So I've got 2 days to really try and hone my thesis, in particular focusing on one of the worst chapters, chapter 3, which is way too long. So let's dive right in. Writing a PhD thesis can be a bit of a roller coaster. There are all kinds of ups and downs. 1 minute you're riding high and then down you go. Or you just find yourself going round in circles, trying not to bump into the same old enemies. And yeah, sorry folks, there will be a fair bit of voiceover in this video as I somehow managed to delete some footage, so bear with me here. So this intensive 2-day workshop with Dr. Catherine Pope was entitled Getting Ready for Submission, Editing, Strengthening and Polishing Your Thesis. I can't hope to share it all with you. You'll have to either attend one yourself or dig into some of the useful links in the description for more in-depth detail, but I am going to explore a few aspects that stood out to me over the weekend. And on that note, I should say thanks to Catherine for being so generous and open to me sharing some of her wisdom here. By the way, there won't actually be a whole lot of music discussed in this video, but hopefully it will be of some use to anyone writing a thesis or something similar. So let's begin with day 1, focusing on 3 issues, some thoughts about examiners, editing levels, and something called reverse outlining. So first of all, who is your thesis for? Let's remember that we're not writing a PhD thesis for a general audience, nor for your peers and colleagues in the field, or even your supervisors. Your thesis should be written for your examiners, and generally speaking, they will approach your thesis in one of 3 ways. In the first type of approach, some examiners will get a general overview by reading the abstract, introduction, conclusion, and table of contents, before then reading from cover to cover. In the second type of approach, they'll skim through the entire thesis before reading from cover to cover. And the third type is the worst kind of examiner, where they will literally just read it once from cover to cover, very slowly and thoroughly. So whatever type of examiner you get, all this means that the way you write has to be extremely clear and well structured in order to convey originality, significance, rigor, coherence, and context. Once you've got a draft of something, there are 3 levels of editing, from the bird's eye view to the extreme close-up, and you're better off doing these in order. Start zoomed out, getting the basic structure right. This means preparing your material by arranging the order, adding or deleting sections, and consolidating. Then think about the content more specifically, editing the text by checking consistency, accuracy, and clarity. Then you can get into the details, making those tiny corrections to the final draft. This stage is purely for spotting small errors. There's really no point wasting time doing this stuff until the very end of the process, as who knows what you might end up cutting or changing a few months from now, and all that time will be wasted. Remember, academic writing is storytelling, so you need a narrative. Each sentence and paragraph should propel your reader from the introduction to the conclusion. Something called reverse outlining. I'm whispering because everyone's hard at work. Oh, there's a coffee machine on. So reverse outlining, we're taking a printed copy of our chapter, we're numbering each paragraph and then writing a concise bullet point that summarizes that paragraph. Then in the second phase, you ask yourself a sequence of questions about each paragraph. So like, is it logical order? Are you repeating yourself, etc.? And then once you've kind of thought through that process, you can edit the bullet point list and then use that as a model to go back to your chapter and edit from there. Yeah. That's perfect. Okay.
I have 500 followers.
Yeah, perfect. Yes, absolutely. So I don't know quite why I'm filming this bit, but this is a little taste of the afterlife. Yeah, exactly. So we're walking back to the hotel as good students to go and get an early night, and we have been accosted by someone giving out free items. So as good students, we've taken these free items. But what are these items? Ta-da! So, yes, you can tell we're in Brighton. So we're ultra thin and ultra soft. I'm not sure that's quite the right word they want to use there, but anyway.
No, tell us.
Yeah. Oh, should we do an unboxing? Yeah, we should. So here we go. Oh, look.
More boxing.
More. This is, it'd be a waste to go any further. But anyway, welcome to Brighton. We began day 2 by thinking about signposting. So, like when you say, in this chapter I will, etc., etc. These are really important, and as Pat Thompson says, the signpost provides not only a roadmap for the reader, but also one for you as a writer. In setting out the way in which the chapter or whatever will proceed, you provide yourself with a way of keeping check on where you are and where you're going, why and how. Here's a good signposting exercise for you. Go through your chapter and see whether you can add signposts to help your reader. For example, have you provided an outline in your introduction to explain what the chapter covers and how it's arranged? If it's a long chapter, have you divided into sections with descriptive headings? Have you cross-referenced any material anywhere that the examiner needs to know about, such as explanations of terms or how you're using theory? And here's a few general rules about sentences. They shouldn't be longer than 3 lines. Read them aloud to see how they flow. Vary the length to keep it interesting. And use semicolons and colons. I like this tip about how to identify the passive voice, which is something you generally want to avoid. If you can insert the phrase by zombies after the verb, you have the passive voice. For example, the data was collected by zombies. It was thought by zombies. It could be argued by zombies. You get the picture. And here's some simple rules. Use active verbs. Favour concrete language. Avoid ambiguous or unnecessary words. Keep it tight. So, it's a delight to be here at Getting Ready for Submission. Is that what it's called? I think that's what it's called.
It is, yes.
And I found it super useful. So, I just wanted to ask you, how would you sum up this weekend?
So this weekend, like a lot of my workshops, it emerged from what I struggled with during my PhD, and it's something that wasn't particularly addressed by the training that was available at the time. Mm-hmm. So there tends to be some support on writing, but very little on what you have to do in the final stages to get everything ready. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's ignored, which means that students in a rush will submit something that's quite sloppy because we think, it's all about the brilliant ideas, and the examiners won't mind if it's messy, but they do. It can make a difference because it introduces ambiguity and all sorts of obstacles. And of course, when you're finishing off your PhD, you haven't got the headspace to think, what do I need to be doing? How do I edit? What are the techniques?
Sort of that strategic approach.
Yeah, so there's a lot of information online about how to do this, but you've got to try and absorb it all and then apply it. So the point of the weekend is to give you some very specific tools and strategies and help you to understand the purpose of the thesis, as you said. It's for the examiners. It's just about convincing those 2 people that you've made an original and significant contribution. That's the only purpose of the thesis, so that's how it has to be addressed.
Exactly. And then you can think about reworking it for a different audience afterwards. And that's
exactly.
So helpful to see it like that.
So it might become a book or a TV series or a podcast afterwards. In which
or a
case,
YouTube video.
Exactly, a YouTube video if you've got your own YouTube channel like you. So that's a completely different purpose, and you have to think about that differently. So trying to give you the exact tools that you need for this stage, so that although, as you said, it's a lot of work, hopefully now you know what you've got to do when you go back to your whole thesis. You've got that strategy.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. I really most appreciated. So onwards and upwards.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After lunch, we did a really helpful exercise on soliciting and giving feedback. I sat and read a section of my new friend Siham's thesis while she read mine. A fresh pair of eyes on your work can give you really valuable insights and help you to strengthen your writing, despite or even because of the fact that they are not experts in your field or familiar with the material. It can also just be really encouraging, which goes a long way when you're wrestling with an untamable thesis. So that's it, we've come to the end. Everybody is exhausted, but I think we've all learned a lot. We've come either to the beach for a final well-deserved drink, or I think folks have gone directly home to bed. But as intense as it's been, we've got a lot of tools and strategies to take forwards to sort our theses out. And hey, whatever happens, we'll always have the beach. So cheers.